And tonight, we're on the case in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, about an hour north of Miami. Residents of this popular tourist destination were stunned after a young mother was found savagely murdered in her own home. As police studied the evidence at the crime scene, a terrifying story of Minerva Cantu's last moments alive came into focus. But it would take decades for investigators to piece together the trail of clues that led to her cold-hearted killer. November 27th, 1990. It was close to 6 p.m. when Fermin Cantu arrived home from work. He was concerned when he noticed the front door was open. But his heart stopped when he stepped inside and found the lifeless body of his 26-year-old wife, Minerva, tied up on the floor of their living room. What did Mr. Cantu walk into when he arrived home?
He walked into a nightmare. The entire inside of the residence was ransacked. He immediately saw his wife on the ground, motionless in the living room.
His wife laying on the floor, bound and gagged.
She had a towel that was wrapped around her face, covering her nose and her mouth, and that was secured with duct tape.
Fermin frantically attempted to save his wife.
He cut the duct tape and the towel that was wrapped around the lower portion of her face, trying to revive her.
But it was too late. Fermin grabbed the phone and tried to call the police.
He then realized the phone cord had been cut, so he yelled to a neighbor behind him, and she's the one who called 911.
While Fermin waited for police to arrive, he desperately tried to locate his 2 young children.
He found his 18-month-old son in the crib, crying in the back bedroom. His daughter was not located at the house.
Before the police arrived, Minerva's niece, Sonia Flores, pulled up to her aunt's house. She was worried why she had been contacted to take Minerva's 8-year-old daughter, Jacinia, home that afternoon.
Her husband was outside with the baby. I said, what happened? Nobody picked up Jacinia.
Fermin then broke the devastating news.
He says, she's gone. And I said, what do you mean she's gone? He says, she's dead. So I ran in the house, and I saw her laying on the floor.
How traumatized were you by what you saw?
It was just horrible.
Seconds later, police ushered Sonia from the house. Detective Tim Barbucio was assigned to the case. Describe to me what you saw as you walked inside the Cantu's home.
She was laying on her left side. Her wrists are bound to her ankles. Her hair has duct tape stuck to it. Blood vessels broken around her eyes. It was terrible.
For Detective Tim Barbucio, this investigation was his first homicide.
I was a 24-year-old kid with a whopping 13 months under my belt of detective experience. I was nervous, and I wanted to solve it.
And the gruesome scene in the living room only added to every officer's resolve. What was determined to be her cause of death?
Asphyxiation. I believe they put the towel around her face to prevent anyone from hearing her scream.
Items from the home had been used to bind Minerva.
The phone cord that had been cut was used as a ligature. They also noticed that an electrical cord had been cut, and that also was used as a ligature.
We had a very good crime scene investigator. He collected the ligatures, he collected the tape, the towel, he processed for latent prints, did fingernail scrapings.
Minerva's orange t-shirt and shorts were also bagged and tagged. Meanwhile, analysts continued to sift through the chaotic scene for additional clues. How badly ransacked was the home?
It was pretty bad. There was stuff thrown all about the floor, and it looks like they went through every room.
Fermin Cantu provided detectives with a theory of why his home had been torn apart.
The Cantus sold gold jewelry on the weekends at the local flea market, and we were able to determine that there was cash and a lot of jewelry that was missing from the residence.
According to her husband, it was about $50,000 in jewelry, as well as $5,000 in cash that was supposed to be in her purse.
Minerva's car, a maroon Mercury Cougar, was also missing.
Her car had been stolen, so we were putting out a bolo for that as well.
While detectives searched for the car, officers began to canvass the area. And a disturbing story from a witness gave detectives their first break in the Minerva Cantu murder investigation. Six-year-old Minerva Cantu had been robbed and murdered in a brutal home invasion. Police had found little evidence at the crime scene to move the case forward. Meanwhile, those closest to Minerva were trying to come to terms with their devastating loss.
I just felt so much sadness that day.
At the tender age of 8, Jacinia had to overcome the terrible tragedy. You were very young when you lost your mom, but I know you still have vivid memories of her. What do you remember the most?
Mainly her character, the way she was. We're a very tight-knit family.
Minerva's murder was a blow to many loved ones. She had been a role model and a mentor to her niece Sonia, who was 8 months pregnant at the time of the attack.
She was like a second mom to me. She was planning my baby shower.
Minerva had been a dedicated stay-at-home mother who operated a jewelry stand at the flea market on weekends to help support her family.
Selling jewelry was her part-time job, and she loved it. She loved being around people. She was a wonderful person, always happy, smiling.
Investigators now believed it was that part-time job that had made Minerva a target of the savage attack. And as they searched for a potential suspect, the first person they questioned was her husband, Fermin. The distraught father of 2 told police that he had been at his landscaping job that day from 6 a.m. until he returned home at 6 p.m.
And it wasn't until he got home that he discovered her.
Could someone corroborate the fact that he was at work all day?
Yes, we confirmed through his employer that he was at work all day.
Police were confident Minerva had been dead for several hours when Fermin contacted police. And conversations with other friends helped narrow the window in which the crime had taken place. Were you able to piece together a timeline of Minerva's last known whereabouts?
Yes. She had been on the phone with a friend, and it was 2 o'clock. She said, "I'm running late to pick up my daughter from school. I have to go." And she hung up the phone.
But Minerva never arrived. At 2:30, when no one showed up to pick up Jacinia, the school called the Cantu residence. There was no answer.
I just knew something was wrong.
That must have been really scary for you.
It was extremely.
The friend told police that she had stopped by at 3:30, assuming that Minerva and Jacinia would be home from school.
She tried to come by the house. She realized that the car was not in the driveway.
Minerva was alive and well at 2 p.m., and her stolen car was already missing before 3:30. The details convinced investigators that the attack had most likely taken place before she left her home after the 2 p.m. call. And a conversation with one of the Cantu's neighbors added weight to that theory.
We were able to locate a witness that lived just north of the Cantu residence. The witness observed two white males stop right in front of the victim's residence and stand there for a while.
So she was looking from inside her home out?
She was on her front porch. I don't know how they didn't see her, but they apparently went right down to the Cantu residence and never paid her any mind.
The neighbor watched the two men as they lingered outside the Cantu's home from 1:30 until at least 1:50 on the afternoon of the murder.
Unfortunately, it began to rain, so she quickly had to run inside the house, and that was the last time that she saw them.
Although the neighbor never saw the two men enter or leave the Cantu's home, she was able to help police create composite sketches of them. How did she describe the two men?
She described them as being in their early 20s. One was taller than the other. He had dark wavy hair and was carrying the black pouch with him.
Based on the information they had collected, police were confident the neighbor had seen Minerva's killers just minutes before the attack. And they hoped the sketches she helped create would generate the tip that brought them to justice. Police trying to solve the murder of Minerva Cantu had established a tight timeline in which the crime had taken place. They were convinced that the young mother had been killed just minutes after her final phone call at 2 p.m. And that made one of Minerva's neighbors a critical witness. She had seen two suspicious men lurking outside the Cantu residence just before that window. Now investigators hoped that composite sketches she helped create would provide the next lead on the case. What kind of response did you get to the composite sketches once you went public with them?
It generated a lot of phone calls.
Officers fanned out to track down every tip. But before they could question any potential suspects, a major clue was uncovered. Minerva's missing car was discovered just blocks away from the crime scene.
This is the area where the victim's vehicle was found the next day, right at the mouth of this alleyway.
Investigators considered several possible reasons why it had been abandoned so close to where it had been stolen.
We thought maybe it was somebody local since they only drove at such a short distance.
Why do you think the suspects abandoned the vehicle just a couple blocks from Minerva's home?
I believe they used that vehicle to escape from the crime scene and had someone pick them up. So they quickly just dumped the vehicle.
The fact that Minerva's car was abandoned so quickly was another detail that led investigators to believe the crime had been carefully planned and executed. And what analysts found after they scoured the stolen car for clues strengthened that theory. Was there any evidence left inside the car that moved the case forward?
We found nothing in the car or outside the car.
Were you able to find any witnesses who saw the men abandon the car?
No.
How frustrating was that for you?
Extremely frustrated.
But just when it seemed the investigation was back to square one, officers received a promising lead about a young man named Sean.
Sean worked in a local supermarket, and his boss had seen the composites in the newspaper.
He believed that the composite resembled Sean, so detectives immediately followed up on that.
As investigators dug deeper, it quickly became clear there was more than just Sean's appearance that caught his boss's attention. The grocery store manager was suspicious of how his employee had come into an expensive new ring.
Sean had just got engaged to his girlfriend, gave her this ring.
And there was more.
The night of the homicide, they left town. That was suspicious.
Police were already preparing to bring Sean in for questioning when another piece of the puzzle appeared to fall into place.
We received a call from a local pawn shop owner. A female came into the store trying to pawn some gold charms.
He believed the gold charms sounded like the ones he had read about in the newspaper and police flyers, detailing items stolen during Minerva's murder.
The pawn shop owner began to question the girl, and she ran out of the store.
The owner had gotten a good look at the charms the woman wanted to sell him.
The pawn shop owner could describe one of the charms as being like a moon crest. Furman Cantu said that his wife had one like that.
Was he able to give you a description of the woman who he said had come in to sell the charms?
A white female, reddish brown hair.
The general description seemed to be very similar to Sean's fiancée. Investigators had just put out an APB on the couple when they suddenly turned themselves in.
They voluntarily came in to us because he had been told that he was being looked at as a suspect.
The grocery store worker claimed he could explain everything. What was Sean's alibi for the day of the murder?
He said that they were staying at a friend's house and that friend kicked them out. So they had nowhere to stay. They decided they're going to go to Connecticut and came back 3 days later.
Police remained skeptical and pressed Sean's fiancée about her engagement ring. Were you able to get a look at her new ring?
Yes, yes. I'm the one that took the photograph of it and showed it to Mr. Cantu. When he confirmed that the ring was not his wife's ring.
Police also confirmed Sean's fiancée had not been the young woman who visited the pawn shop.
It wasn't her. We never were able to identify that person that went into that pawn shop.
In the end, the series of circumstantial clues turned out to be nothing more than an unfortunate coincidence. After passing a polygraph, Sean and his fiancée were cleared. The investigation was now back to square one, and friends and loved ones began to fear that Minerva Cantu's killers might never face justice. Police had chased dozens of tips about the two men seen lurking outside Minerva Cantu's home just minutes before her murder. But despite composite sketches and the countless hours of hard work, the case had ground to a standstill. Then, in March 1991, a confidential informant provided detectives with a promising new lead. Police got their next big break in the case from an informant. What did he tell them?
He advised police that he and a subject by the name of Randy Roberts had actually cased the Minerva Cantu residence to commit a burglary.
The informant claimed that he and Roberts had identified the Cantu's home as a high-value target for a robbery.
Randy Roberts had received information that the Cantus had a large sum of jewelry in the residence.
The advanced planning the informant described fit with the way police believed the crime had unfolded. And his tip became even more credible when police examined Randy Roberts' criminal history and background. Who was Randy Roberts, and how did he know about the Cantu's jewelry business?
Randy Roberts would basically commit home invasion, robberies, burglaries.
Still, detectives remained skeptical. They asked the informant how Roberts had developed his inside information on the Cantus. His answer was shocking.
He had a lady by the name of Esther and her husband Julio give him tips or give him information as to places that might be a potential target.
Could Randy Roberts have been responsible for the murder of Minerva Cantu? Everything police had discovered seemed to make him the prime suspect in the case. And then the informant added even more evidence. He said that Roberts had committed a very similar robbery just a few miles away.
The same confidential informant told police that Randy Roberts had also committed a home invasion robbery in Boynton Beach, nearby, with an unknown accomplice.
Many details of the two crimes were identical.
During the Boynton Beach home invasion, they tied up the lady and her husband, and then they left the residence stealing the vehicle, and they abandoned the vehicle close by.
What were the key differences between what happened and the Boynton Beach home invasion?
People who were victims of the home invasion lived to tell their story. Minerva Cantu was murdered.
Police took Roberts into custody for the home invasion in Boynton Beach after the couple he robbed identified him as their assailant during a lineup.
He admitted to the Boynton Beach home invasion.
Roberts even provided police with the name of his accomplice in the Boynton Beach crime, a man he knew as Jesse. But his tone changed when police asked him about the robbery at the Cantu's home. Did he deny being involved in Minerva's murder?
Yes, he adamantly denied being involved in the murder of Minerva Cantu.
But Roberts did have information about the crime. He claimed that he and Jesse had initially prepared to rob the Cantus together.
He and Jesse went to the residence and cased out the residence a couple times prior to the homicide.
Roberts maintained that when it was time to commit the robbery, Jesse had done it without him. And he mentioned the same married couple as the confidential informant had as the source of his information.
He was told by Esther and Julio that Jesse and a cousin from New Jersey had actually committed the crime. And he was mad because it was a crime he was going to commit.
Roberts insisted he didn't know Jesse's last name, and he had no information about the second man involved in the robbery. Were investigators thinking he could have been the second of the two men standing outside Minerva's home the afternoon of the murder?
Definitely at that point, they could not rule him out as being a suspect.
Investigators believe that the couple Roberts mentioned, Esther and her husband Julio, knew who was at the Cantus' home that day. Officer Pete Emil was part of the team assigned to watch them.
We were given the task of doing surveillance on some suspects that had some involvement with some jewelry. They looked promising.
Police then utilized their confidential informant to try to get additional evidence.
The confidential informant would secretly record telephone conversations or in-person meetings with Esther and Julio.
During the conversations, the answer to several puzzling details of the crime became clear, including why Minerva's killers had taken her car.
She was disbelieving when they walked in, and she had everything in the car. They took the car, they took the jewelry, everything. It was so easy.
The secret recordings also confirmed that Jesse had been involved.
He messed up there.
That's Jesse?
Yeah.
They threw it up.
He messed up now.
Up to the power and
Then the informant asked Esther and Julio in Spanish if Randy Roberts had been Jesse's accomplice.
él fue el de la vieja esa como tal.
Yeah.
Randy.
No, he wasn't. He would have got a lot of money. I know it wasn't. He said, if I would have done it, I'd leave you on the top.
After reviewing all of the tape-recorded calls, police were convinced that Randy Roberts was not involved in the murder of Minerva Cantu.
At no time did anyone ever implicate Randy Roberts in the homicide. It was always referring to Jesse.
Following the tape-recorded conversations, Esther and her husband Julio were questioned by police. But despite all the evidence to the contrary, the couple denied knowing anything about the murder and refused to cooperate. Were investigators able to make any arrests after getting this information?
No, they were not.
Why is that?
They were working closely with the state attorney's office, and at the time, they just didn't feel that there was sufficient evidence to make an arrest. You get one chance to make the arrest.
Investigators on the case found the decision extremely frustrating.
We couldn't put all the pieces together. It was just a very difficult case with a lot of dead ends, and they all went cold eventually.
And for more than 2 decades, it stayed that way until science and relentless police work finally landed Minerva Cantu's killers back in the crosshairs of their investigation. Investigators trying to solve the murder of Minerva Cantu had come very close to identifying a suspect. But even after police obtained tape recordings that indicated a man named Jesse had killed her, the case went cold. And it stayed that way as Minerva's 2 young children grew into adults, desperate for answers. Did you become increasingly frustrated and angry that her case wasn't solved?
I did. I wanted justice. It was just horrible. Horrible for someone to do something like this to her. And to leave us to have no mother to grow up.
Because so much time had passed, did you eventually lose hope that the case would be solved?
I did, yes.
Then, in 2014, Jacinia was contacted by Detective Paige McCann from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. When you looked at the case file for the first time, did you think you had a chance to solve it?
Yes, I did. I believe that the initial investigators did a fantastic job. It was just missing that last piece of the puzzle.
And the new team of detectives hoped that the last piece might be the identification of their prime suspect's real name. Investigators spoke with confidential informants and pored over countless case files searching for that answer. Were police able to learn who Jesse was?
Yes, they believe that Jesse is Jaffer Negron.
Negron's criminal history convinced detectives they were on the right track. What did you end up learning about Jaffer Negron?
He had prior arrests for stealing vehicles. He had some drug charges, some weapon charges. He was currently living in North Carolina at the time of my investigation.
But before Detective McCann confronted Negron, she went back through every item collected at the crime scene, hoping to uncover physical evidence that would seal the case against him.
This is a picture of the towel that the suspect used to cover Minerva Cantu's head. They used several pieces of duct tape in order to secure this tightly to her head.
I was very hopeful. Duct tape is the gold mine for trace evidence.
Investigators sent the duct tape to the crime lab for testing. The results were surprising.
We were hopeful that the duct tape would yield a DNA profile identifying the suspects, but unfortunately, we only obtained Minerva Cantu's DNA.
I couldn't believe it. I was crushed. There we are, back to ground zero.
But the investigators fought through the disappointment and tested other less likely pieces of evidence.
Minerva's orange shirt and also some scrapings from her fingernails.
What were the test results?
For the orange shirt and the fingernail scrapings, there was a mixture that involved Minerva Cantu, as well as foreign DNA profiles.
Investigators were certain that the DNA would be a match to Jaffer Negron, but they still needed to obtain a sample for testing. What was your strategy for getting his DNA?
I contacted the Harnett County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina and requested their assistance. They spent many, many man-hours following him around and finally were able to obtain a cigarette butt that he had discarded. And we submitted it for DNA analysis.
The testing confirmed what investigators already knew.
His DNA profile was consistent with a foreign DNA profile obtained from the orange shirt as well as the fingernail scrapings.
For investigators, it was an incredibly satisfying moment.
Wow, all that emotion, all those years of frustration, that little kid laying in that crib, that young girl, that husband whose wife was brutally murdered, and all of a sudden, wow, we got it.
Investigators were now certain they had identified at least one of the two men responsible for the murder of Minerva Cantu. But they were still convinced Negron had an accomplice.
We had witnesses at the scene that said two men were seen out in front.
Investigators hoped Negron would provide them the name of his partner in crime during a videotape interview in his home state of North Carolina. Detective McCann started with basic questions.
I'm going to show you a picture of the victim in this case, and just let me know if you recognize her.
I don't recall.
This is 421 North F Street. You ever remember being at that house?
I don't recall. I mean, this house looks a lot of different houses.
Negron denied knowing Randy Roberts, Esther, and her husband Julio, and claimed he was not part of a robbery ring in Palm Beach.
Do you know why they would bring your name up?
Maybe they were trying to throw me under the bus or something like that. I never killed nobody, period. I did not kill that thing. They might have mentioned my name, but I didn't do what you think I did.
After countless denials and evasive answers, Negron was confronted with the evidence that proved he was lying.
Your DNA was found in 2 areas at the crime scene, okay? And you really haven't been able to explain how they could have gotten in those areas.
I didn't have nothing to do with that.
So there wouldn't be any reason at all for your DNA to be anywhere in that house?
I have no idea, why my DNA would be in that house.
But slowly, Negron began to waver under the pressure of the evidence.
If my DNA is there, that means I was there. And all I'm telling you is I don't remember that.
What was going through your mind as you questioned him and heard his answers?
I just wanted to know why. Why did they not take off the towel from around her face? I mean, that would have been simple. To take that off, she wouldn't have suffocated. It's a tragedy.
Did you sense you were ever going to get a confession out of him?
No, I didn't think he would confess, and he never provided any additional information that would lead us to who his accomplice was.
Jeffrey Negron was charged with the murder of Minerva Cantu and extradited back to Florida to stand trial. For Minerva's family, it was news they had waited more than 25 years to hear. Can you take me back to that moment where you were informed that the man who was suspected of killing your mother had been arrested?
I literally just cried because I just never thought I would see that day.
It was shocking. I couldn't believe it. It finally happened. Somebody finally got caught for doing this horrible thing to my aunt.
It was a moment of vindication for the first detective on the case. What was your reaction when years later you found out there had finally been an arrest?
I was thrilled. I didn't think it would ever get solved.
When Jeffrey Negron's trial opened in June of 2019, prosecutors told the packed courtroom their theory of how Negron and his accomplice committed the brutal home invasion.
They weren't expecting anybody to be in the home. They were surprised. They tied up Minerva Cantu.
She was getting ready to leave to go pick up her daughter from school. Based on statements provided in his own words to Esther and Julio, he used the duct tape and as well as put the towel over her mouth so she couldn't scream any longer.
Jasenia Cantu listened to the gruesome details with her loved ones. I know it was extremely important for you and your brother to attend the trial. Can you explain to us why that was critical for you?
For my mom to know that we're still here seeking justice for her. It was extremely difficult to look at someone and know that they're the ones responsible for your mother not being here. It was heartbreaking.
After a 3-day trial, Jeffrey Negron was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 25 years. For Minerva's loved ones, the verdict was a relief, but they believe there is still more to be done before they feel justice has been served.
We still don't know the whole story of why, and he didn't do this alone.
Investigators agree. Is Minerva Cantu's case still active?
Yes, there was a second accomplice, so it won't be completely closed until we can identify that second accomplice.
Law enforcement continues to look for that accomplice. Are you hopeful that their investigation might lead to another arrest?
We waited all these years, and we got him. I still have hope.
A hope that is fueled by the loving memories of a woman who meant so much to so many. Is your mom a daily presence in your life?
She is constant. And the one lesson I always learned from her was to have a good presence, be good to people. She was a good person.
Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Frederick, Maryland, about an hour from Washington, D.C. The close-knit community was stunned when news broke that 15-year-old Stacy Hoffmaster had vanished off her front porch just moments after her mother had seen her there. Fear over what might have happened to the friendly high school freshman forced her family and police to consider many troubling possibilities. But the reality of what actually happened was far worse than any of them could have imagined. Wednesday, October 2nd, 1996. It was a cold, crisp afternoon in Maryland when a call came in to the Frederick Police Department. On the line was Vicki Hoffmaster. She was frantic because her 15-year-old daughter, Stacy, was missing. When was the last time she had seen her daughter?
She had not seen her daughter since the day prior. At around 1 o'clock, she had come home from work a little bit early, and Stacy was on the front porch of their house.
Was she surprised to see her daughter home that afternoon?
Yes, Stacy had left school early.
Stacy was skipping school that day, so they sort of met eyes. She pulled into the back of the house where the parking area was, and by the time she had come out to the front of the house, Stacy was gone.
That afternoon, Stacy's family believed the teenager had left to avoid a confrontation with her mother over cutting school. What went through your mind when you heard that your sister was missing?
I wasn't worried because I just figured maybe she had went off with a friend and decided to stay at their house for a night.
But Stacy's brother Chris and the rest of her loved ones began to worry when they discovered that none of Stacy's friends had heard from her. Even her boyfriend Alfie hadn't seen her since they had lunch together the afternoon she disappeared.
Alfie told us that they came here and picked up their lunch. Stacy got chicken nuggets, french fries, and a soda. After they got their food, they walked back to Stacy's house. He lives about a mile down that direction. They actually ate their lunch on Stacy's porch.
Stacy's mother had come home just minutes after that lunch was over. Alfie claimed he had already gone back to work and had made plans to see Stacy later that afternoon.
He told Stacy they would see each other when they got off work at around 3 o'clock, and she agreed to meet him.
Did she ever show up at 3 p.m.?
No, ma'am, she didn't show up.
Investigators searched Stacy's home and front yard for anything that might explain her disappearance. Could investigators find any evidence of foul play?
No. What was on the stoop was the McDonald's wrappers from what she had eaten. That was it.
With no evidence of an abduction, police weren't sure a crime had even been committed.
It made sense that she walked away. Her mother was clearly mad.
There were no indications of any wrongdoing at the time.
But a closer examination revealed evidence that made the theory that Stacy had left on her own harder to accept.
If she had run away voluntarily, she would have taken some clothes. She would have taken her book bag. She would have taken her wallet. You know, everything of hers was there.
The mysterious missing persons investigation quickly became big news in Frederick and police received dozens of tips from people who believed they had actually seen Stacy alive and well. Did any of the sightings eventually help investigators find her?
No, none of them.
Police continued to run down every lead. But as the weeks turned into months, many feared that the search for Stacy Hoffmaster would end badly. During those dark days, her family turned to their faith. What do you remember about those months where you and your family were waiting for answers?
It was a lot of worrying and wondering where she could be, when she's gonna come home.
Then, 3 months after Stacy went missing, 2 men walking in the nearby woods made a shocking discovery.
2 local men were in this area looking for aluminum cans. They came across a blue blanket lying on the ground. It was weighed down by several stones. It caught their attention. They went over, they lifted the blanket up, and they discovered the remains of human female.
It was clear the young woman had been the victim of a savage, sexually motivated attack.
She was bound at the hands and at the feet, and they found a ligature around her throat, and she also had a sock that was protruding from her mouth.
The victim was naked and unrecognizable, her clothing scattered nearby.
They found blue sweatpants and a blue sweatshirt that had a fire department logo on them, a pair of Fila sneakers. Her underwear were recovered in the general area, and they later recovered her bra that was just a slight distance away.
The clothing and the rope the young woman had been bound with were collected as evidence. What type of rope was the victim tied with?
It was a yellow nylon rope that you would use for camping or boating.
And at the end of the ropes, there was these nails. The type of nails that they used to nail in railroad ties.
They also could have been used as stakes to secure a tent. Police paid careful attention to the quilted blanket that was used to conceal the young woman's body. What kind of blanket was used to cover the victim?
It was a blue mover-style blanket, kind of heavy.
The blanket had a distinct tear mark running down one side. Was there anything at the scene that helped the investigators identify the victim?
No, they searched the area. There was nothing on scene that they could use immediately to identify her.
But prosecutor Nancy Ham, who had just begun her career at the district attorney's office, believed she knew who had been found. The sweatpants and sweatshirt found at the crime scene were a match to the one Stacy had been wearing the afternoon she disappeared. What went through your mind when you heard that a body of a young girl had been found in the woods?
I remember thinking, it's got to be Stacy Hoffmaster.
Police in Frederick, Maryland had just been called to a grim crime scene. The body of a young woman was found under a moving blanket with her hands and feet bound together with a yellow rope. It appeared she had been strangled to death during a sexually motivated attack. What kind of a human being was capable of killing a young girl that way?
I couldn't even describe it. Someone that's very evil.
In investigators believe they knew the identity of the victim. Blue sweatpants and a blue sweatshirt discovered near the body matched what 15-year-old Stacy Hoffmaster had been wearing the day she disappeared. And the results of the medical examiner's report confirmed everyone's worst fears.
Stacy had a bone abnormality in her foot, so they had x-rays. They were able to compare the x-rays to x-rays that the MEA had taken and were able to confirm her identity that way.
The autopsy ultimately painted a terrifying picture of the teenager's last moments alive. The murder weapon had been a thin piece of rope found around Stacy's neck. What did the medical examiner determine had happened to her?
They ruled that the cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation, ligature.
The rope that was used to strangle her was tied almost like a noose. It was so tight. The medical examiner said he had to actually cut it off. And it was this big, this big. It was tiny, like he pulled it that tight. It just made me sick.
Other injuries Stacy suffered help investigators sharpen their theory of how the sadistic attack unfolded. Could the medical examiner find any signs of a struggle?
She had a pretty bad contusion to her forehead, and the medical examiner said it would have made her woozy, and it would have made it very difficult for her to fight.
Biological evidence confirmed that Stacy had been sexually assaulted. Was there any doubt in your mind that whoever had left the biological evidence behind had not only raped Stacy, but killed her?
No, ma'am.
Undigested food in Stacy's stomach provided critical information about when the attack happened.
They found a starchy material that was consistent with French fries, and we knew she had had French fries as part of her meal from McDonald's.
Did that help investigators narrow down the time frame of her murder?
Yes, it did. It usually takes between an hour to up to 3 hours to digest food, and we knew that she had eaten lunch at around 12 to 12:30.
Based on the evidence, it appeared that Stacy was killed the day she disappeared. In fact, police were confident Stacy's murder had happened between 1 p.m. and 3 that afternoon. While the details were important to the investigation, they wouldn't help detectives with the grim task that came next: informing Stacy's family that their search had ended in the worst way possible. Who broke the news to you that Stacy's body had been found?
It was my brother. He just looked over at me and told me, Stacy's dead, and I immediately just ran and cried. I was just so upset.
You were just 14 years old at the time. How did you cope with your sister's murder?
Just trying to be there for my family and my mother especially.
In his quiet moments alone, Chris was tormented by his final conversation with his sister. It had taken place at the bus stop on the morning of her murder. As he replayed that conversation over and over again, he wondered if there was something more he could have done to convince Stacy not to skip school that day. But in the end, his biggest regret was simply not telling her how much she meant to him.
I wish I would have given her a hug and told her I love her.
Chris will always treasure his memories of his beloved older sister. How would you describe Stacy's personality?
She was very big-hearted, very kind, very outgoing. She would help anybody that needed help.
As investigators listened to her family describe Stacy, they were forced to consider if someone had taken advantage of the teenager's compassionate nature to lead her into harm's way. Investigators retraced the teenager's last known whereabouts, in particular, her last lunch date with her boyfriend Alfie. Police believed there was more to Alfie's story than he had told them. They brought him in for questioning and focused on every minute of his timeline during the 3-hour window in which Stacy was killed. Especially what happened after the couple finished eating lunch on Stacy's porch.
The last conversation they had was that she would meet him at his place of employment when he got off work at 3 o'clock.
Alfie told police he was worried when Stacy didn't arrive.
He waited for Stacy at 3 o'clock at the corner where she was supposed to meet him. 10 minutes went by and he thought, you know, where is she?
Alfie walked to Stacy's house and spoke with her brother Chris, who had just gotten home from school. How did he seem to you? Did he seem worried?
At first, he seemed just, hey, well, where's your sister at? And I said, she's not here. He looked like he was getting a little worried, so he asked me to borrow my bike. He was probably gone maybe 10 minutes, came back and said, I didn't find her. If she comes home, tell her I'm at work. Please to come see me. And I said, okay.
Alfie claimed that his search for Stacy made him late for his second job, which started at 3:30 p.m.
He ended up getting to work about 3:50.
Investigators felt the biggest problem with Alfie's story was that there was no way to confirm that Stacy had not actually gone to meet him that afternoon.
He admitted that she was to come see him.
Could Alfie's actions have been designed to cover up a deadly crime? Police investigating the murder of Stacy Hoffmaster were under intense pressure. The teenager had been found in a wooded area not far from her home. What was the reaction of the community to Stacy's murder?
The community was appalled. They wanted answers and they wanted them quick. People were alarmed.
Everybody was upset. They always just wondered, are they ever going to find him? How do you just do something like that and get away with it?
Stacy had been killed within hours of when she and her boyfriend Alfie had their last lunch together. And now, all of Alfie's actions during the time she was missing were being viewed in a different light. Investigators wondered if there was a reason he had spent weeks trying to convince them that Stacy was still alive.
He kept reporting sightings to the police, and they were having a very hard time confirming these sightings. He was putting up signs everywhere, and they didn't know if he was sort of sending them on wild goose chases. It created suspicion.
But perhaps the most troubling concerns were raised by those closest to Stacy. Did you ever suspect that Alfie could have had something to do with Stacy's murder?
Absolutely, yeah, I did. I had thoughts that it could have been him.
Friends painted a portrait of a jealous boyfriend who constantly questioned Stacy about other men. What did Stacy's friends have to say about her relationship with Alfie?
The reports were coming in from Stacy's friends that she and Alfie were going through a hard time. They were arguing a lot.
Did investigators think an argument could have resulted in murder?
Yes, ma'am. The fact that he admitted that she was to come see him when he got off of work, the reports that they had been having some problems at the time, all of those things combined just raised a possible motive with investigators.
Still, in the face of intense questioning, Alfie repeatedly denied any involvement in the crime and stuck to a story about what he had done that day. Investigators asked him to take a polygraph. What were the results?
There were signs of deception in his polygraph.
Was he the prime suspect in her murder?
Absolutely.
When police turned up the pressure even further, Alfie stopped cooperating.
They then got a search warrant and took his DNA. After his DNA was taken, he lawyered up.
Detectives knew Alfie had an intimate relationship with Stacy, which meant a DNA match with the evidence might not seal their case. So they continued to work hard to find a crack in his timeline. What were the unanswered questions?
From the time he left work at 3 o'clock till the time he punched in at his second place of employment, there were a lot of gaps in his time that needed to be accounted for.
Alfie eventually arrived at his second job at 3:50. That left a 50-minute window of time unaccounted for. Was it enough to have committed the heinous crime? Police carefully retraced every element of Alfie's alibi, verifying each step he claimed to have taken, and reached a stunning conclusion.
With the routes that he provided us, that left him less than 4 minutes that he could have had the opportunity to get to the woods, commit the crime, and still make it back to his place of employment.
And any doubts that Alfie could have been responsible for Stacy's murder were removed when the crime lab returned its report. Did Alfie's DNA match the biological evidence recovered from the crime scene?
No, it didn't.
Could you rule him out as a potential suspect?
Yes, we could rule him out.
With Alfie cleared, the investigation was back to square one. Detectives returned to the crime scene, and it was a second, more comprehensive search of the area where Stacy's body had been found that revealed critical new evidence.
They realized that there was a campsite less than a half a football field from there.
Investigators noticed an abandoned tent held together with some very unusual materials.
The same type of ropes and nails hanging that matched what Stacy.
Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Spokane, Washington. The picturesque city, known for its natural beauty, became the unlikely setting for an ugly homicide investigation following a terrifying attack on a 12-year-old girl. The murder of Marcy Bellis sent a ripple of fear across the community and marked the beginning of a decades-long quest for justice. August 5th, 1985. It was a bright summer morning in Spokane, Washington, when the caretaker of a tow yard made a gut-wrenching discovery.
He found the body of a young woman under a boom truck in his yard.
Was it obvious to him that she had been murdered?
It was very clear that she had been killed. He called police right away.
Spokane police raced to the scene and were stunned by what they saw. Police were dispatched to a gruesome crime scene. What did they discover?
Patrol officers found a young girl. Her dress had been cut off of her. She had been very violently assaulted with a knife, stabbed multiple times.
The young victim's lilac-colored dress was in tatters, and one of her rubber jelly shoes was found near her battered body. How severe were her wounds?
The wounds were what I would describe as overkill, in excess of 25 stab wounds to both the front and back of her torso.
They were extreme. Slashed throat and stab wounds to the head and temple.
What was the official cause of death?
The official cause was bleeding to death from the stab wounds.
Did it appear as though the victim had any chance to defend herself?
No. She was overpowered and overwhelmed very quickly.
As investigators carefully processed the crime scene, more critical evidence was found. It told a grim story of how the attack unfolded.
At the scene, investigators found a boot print in the dirt, tire tracks leaving the area, and an empty knife sheath laying near the body.
Were they able to find the knife?
The knife was never found.
The sheath belonged to a very specific model of double-sided dagger. And during the autopsy, the forensic pathologist determined that the injuries were consistent with a double-edged knife.
Was there any evidence of a sexual assault?
Yes, evidence was collected that showed the presence of semen.
The biological evidence helped confirm what investigators already suspected. A crime scene often speaks to investigators. What did the brutal violence tell them happened here?
My theory was that the suspect began trying to be romantic with the victim. The victim resisted that overture and tried to get away. The suspect attacked her to gain control of her, and during that attack, killed her.
Investigators pieced together more evidence. The tire tracks and several missing items belonging to the victim indicated that the assault likely began inside a car and then spilled out into the tow yard.
The second jelly shoe was never found. She was wearing earrings, and one earring was missing. I believe that those were probably left inside the car.
Police expanded their theory of the crime based on the discovery of blood in different areas of the tow yard. It appeared the victim had escaped from the car, was caught, and then stabbed.
They found a large blood pool, and that's where the knife sheath was found. That's when the knife was taken from its sheath to be used against her.
The young girl was then left to die where her body had been found.
It was clear that she had been dragged about 30 feet to her final location under the boom truck.
Police hoped that physical evidence might lead them to a suspect. Were the tire tracks useful?
No, and there was some possible boot print. None of those things actually panned out for the investigators.
They initially thought that they had a bloody handprint on a Pinto next where she was found. Later, it turned out that that handprint was actually in grease. Nobody was ever able to match that handprint to anything.
But the sheer violence of the crime did provide investigators with some insight into the type of suspect they might be looking for. In your mind, what did the MO at the crime scene tell you about who the killer was?
The heinous and terrible injuries really pointed to somebody that had kind of lost control during the time of the homicide. The frenetic overkill of the stab wounds and then cutting her throat on top of that. That kind of just pointed us in the direction of maybe somebody younger.
But who could have been angry enough to sexually assault and kill a child? The first step in answering that question required police to identify the young victim. There had been no purse or wallet found at the scene. But officers had something almost as critical: the details of a distraught mother's missing persons report. She told officers when her daughter was last seen, she had been wearing a brand new lilac dress and jelly shoes.
Investigators at the crime scene noted the clothing that the victim had on and that it exactly matched the clothing that Marcy Velez was reported to be wearing.
How old was she?
Marcy was 12 years old at that time.
The obvious connection sent investigators on a grim journey to ask the mother of a missing child if the young girl they had just found murdered was actually her precious daughter. Police in Spokane, Washington were on their way to the home of 12-year-old Marcy Velez. They believed the missing sixth grader had been the victim of a brutal attack. Marcy's older sister, Bia, will never forget the moment when police arrived to ask her family if they could identify the little girl in the disturbing crime scene photos. How did you find out your little sister had been murdered?
Detectives came to the door. They showed the pictures. We verified that that was indeed Marcy. I was definitely in shock.
And what made it even more difficult for Bia and her three other sisters were the regrets they shared over how Marcy had gone missing in the first place. The story began with a dispute over money and the new dress Marcy had just bought that day. When was the last time you saw Marcy?
The last time I saw Marcy, she was arguing. She owed one of our other sisters some money and had earned some money from babysitting. She had spent it on a dress.
Marcy had expected her sisters to compliment her on how beautiful the dress was. She was crushed when they lashed out at her instead. How important do you think this lilac dress was to her?
It was very important. Our lifestyle did not allow for a lot of things. So to have a new dress was a really big deal. She was proud of herself for earning the money.
Marcy was so crestfallen that right after that fight, she bolted out of the house in tears.
I think she felt guilty more than anything, and that's the last I saw her.
Police asked for a detailed timeline of Marcy's last known movements. When was Marcy last seen by her mother?
That was Saturday, August 3rd, 1985.
Where did her mother believe she was going after she left the house?
Her mother thought that she was going to her best friend's house, which was not too far away.
Following the family feud, Marcy had gone to Laura's house.
She didn't want to go home, and my mom and me asked her to just stay the night, and she said no. And at that time, it was, dusk.
It was late that evening when Marcy's family discovered that she wasn't at Laura's house. They spent a sleepless.
She was just fun-loving. She was genuine. Just a true, genuine person.
She was very willing to believe the best in people and always willing to help.
Could you think of anyone who would have wanted to hurt Marcy?
No. Oh, God, no.
But when police asked that same question of Marcy's mother, she had a much different answer. Marcy had confided in her that she had recently been the victim of a sexual assault by someone she considered a friend. Detectives investigating the murder of Marcy Velez suddenly had their first suspect. Spokane police were on the hunt for a savage killer. And while the sisters of 12-year-old Marcy Velez couldn't think of anyone who would have had a reason to hurt Marcy, her mother did. She said that her daughter had recently shared a disturbing story with her about being attacked by a teenager named Jamie. Who was Jamie, and how did Marcy know him?
Jamie was an individual that Marcy had met through her sisters. She had, at one point, just prior to her death, gone to ride around in a car with them, and at some point, there was a sexual assault. She told her mom about it. They filed a report with the police department in the city.
Marcy had tearfully asked her parents to keep the details of the assault from her older siblings. Marcy grew up with 3 older sisters. How do you think that affected her comfort level with hanging out with older kids?
A lot. She was always trying to be one of the older kids. She wanted to be like the older sisters.
Do you think that made her naive?
Yes. She wasn't well aware of all the evils out there. She hadn't seen what some of us older girls had seen. She was naive.
And now police wondered if Marcy's innocence had allowed her to be targeted for murder by an older boy trying to silence the only witness who could testify against him in a sexual assault case.
That report was transferred to the sheriff's office and was an investigation that was pending at the time of her death.
Based on the fact that Marcy's family had filed a police report about the sexual assault, did investigators believe that would have provided a motive for Jamie to murder her?
Yes, there was some information that was passed along to the investigators that Jamie had threatened Marcy for filing the report.
That made Jamie angry, and he told some people that he wanted to get even with her.
Police theorized that Jamie could have found Marcy walking alone that night and convinced her to get into his car to talk about the allegations. Investigators quickly located the older boy for questioning. What did he have to say for himself?
He admitted to having sexual relations with Marcy, but he claimed it was not a rape.
He tried to paint it as consensual sexual intercourse.
And Jamie denied having anything to do with Marcy's murder. Still, as police pressed Jamie about their suspicions, the teenager had a hard time with the details of his account.
His story tended to vary as to what actually happened, but he claimed that he had not seen Marcy.
Did he have an alibi?
He said that he was at his grandmother's house at the time of Marcy's death.
Even after relatives verified Jamie's alibi, investigators were skeptical. But the case against him remained entirely circumstantial. Was there any evidence linking Jamie to Marcy's murder?
Nothing directly.
Investigators were frustrated. but continued to focus on how and where Marcy had crossed paths with her killer. That meant going through her last known movements with a fine-tooth comb. And it was her best friend Laura who provided a critical detail. She said that just after Marcy's argument with her sisters, they had an encounter with two boys.
We stopped at Liberty Park, and that's where we talked to the two boys.
Laura said she never got a good look at either boy, but Marcy had known one of them. She used the name Brett. Did it seem like a friendly encounter?
Yes. She seemed to know the one boy.
And during the conversation, Brett asked Marcy if she wanted to meet up later to go to a party.
They invited her to meet them under a bridge in downtown Spokane to party with them.
Did she hear anything about where the party was going to happen?
She did. The party was going to be in some apartments a short distance from Marcy's home.
Laura also informed police that Marcy had asked her to keep the meeting and her plans for the night a secret.
She said Marcy told her, don't tell anybody.
She said she was going to meet the boys. And I had a horrible, horrible gut feeling. I told her that I felt like something was going to happen, so I've always blamed myself.
Laura's story had a major impact on the investigation. It now appeared that identifying the mysterious Brett and learning more about the party he invited Marcy to might be the key to cracking the case. Detectives investigating the murder of Marcy Velez were retracing her last known movements. She had been invited to a party by a boy she met in the park earlier that afternoon. The only witness had been Marcy's best friend, Laura. Do you remember anything else about that encounter?
When I talked to the investigators after it happened, I did give them the name of one of the boys.
Laura had overheard Marcy say the name Brett, but she hadn't seen nor heard much else.
She said that he was about 15 years old and they were going to meet and go to the party.
Police immediately fanned out, hoping to find a witness who could tell them more about Brett or the party he and Marcy had attended. Were police ever able to track down the location of that party?
They were.
On the night Marcy went missing, there was a high school drinking party. At the same time, there was another party in an apartment below.
Over the course of the night, the teenagers' party and the one with older guests had merged. Police took note of just how close the gathering had been to Marcy's home and the tow yard where her body was found. So when you looked at a map and saw where her home was, where the party was, and the tow yard, what went through your mind?
It was a perfect triangle of 1.5 miles between each location.
Several of the party guests remember seeing a young girl that looked like Marcy, wearing a lilac-colored dress.
One person at the party remembers Marcy asking for a ride home sometime later in the evening while at the party.
But none of the teenagers could remember her getting into a car.
No one saw her leave.
How difficult is it to get straight answers from kids who've been up partying?
It can be difficult. They're not necessarily paying attention to everything that's going on. And sometimes they don't want to tell you for one reason or another.
While police sorted through those hazy stories, other officers found the boy who Marcy's friends believed had invited her to the party. Were police able to find Brett?
They did, yes.
But the teenager claimed it was a case of mistaken identity. He insisted he hadn't spoken with Marcy that day and that he hadn't gone to a party that night.
They got his statement. He denied having seen her for probably a month.
As investigators tried to verify Brett's story, they were also confronted by another issue that was raised during the teenager's interview. He was adamant that he wasn't the only Brett Marcy knew.
Brett really gave the investigators a lot of extra work in terms of determining which Brett they needed to talk to.
Investigators ultimately spoke with every boy named Brett in the area.
The investigators ended up going through the local school yearbooks to find a bunch more Bretts and trying to determine if any of them had been at Liberty Park.
But after an exhaustive effort, none could be placed in the park with Marcy that afternoon, nor at the party where she had last been seen. Still, the search for the mysterious Brett did lead police to uncover a disturbing new clue. There had been another Brett in Marcy's life, but he wasn't 15 years old.
There was an older male that had called trying to contact Marcy. His name was Brett, and they had his phone number, and so investigators immediately took to find Brett.
As investigators dug deeper into the older Brett, they were stunned.
He was in his 20s. He was married. Police noticed at the time from their first contact with him that he was extremely nervous.
And police believed he had a lot of reasons to be concerned.
He had marks on his face. He had injuries to his eye that he claimed was a result of a fight with his brother.
Police wondered if he might have actually been hurt during the brutal attack on Marcy. Where did he say he was on the night of the murder?
He was in Seattle. He had gone there Saturday night and returned about 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
Was it possible that he had the time to commit the murder?
Certainly. There's a lot of hours in between.
And without a verified alibi or a reason for being in communication with a 12-year-old girl, the older Brett stayed on the police radar. Could police dismiss him as a suspect?
No, they could not.
But without evidence linking him to Marcy's murder, they couldn't move forward either. After chasing down hundreds of leads, a rape allegation, and at least 4 people named Brett, investigators still had not zeroed in on a prime suspect.
The investigators at the time that had this case really did everything that they could do.
Where did that leave Marcy's case?
It left it unsolved. They were never able to actually tie anybody to her homicide. It ultimately was a cold case.
And that meant Marcy's family was forced to live without justice. The investigation focused on a couple of suspects, but no arrests were made. And your days of waiting for answers turned into months and then years. Did you begin to believe that the case would never be solved?
Of course we did. You just give up. So much time goes by, so many other evils going on in the world. It becomes something you just have to accept.
But as the years rolled by, advances in forensic science would open doors no one could have imagined back in 1985. Would the new techniques give Marcy's loved ones the answers they deserved? The investigation into the murder of Marcy Velez had gone cold. But the city of Spokane never forgot about the tragedy of a 12-year-old found stabbed to death in her brand new lilac dress.
This was a little girl, and she met the most horrific of endings. And she could have been anybody's child. It gives me goosebumps just thinking that that happened here.
Local TV reporter Haley Gunthner was like so many in Spokane who were touched by the unsolved case.
Right away, I knew I had to do whatever I could to try to help her family, if nothing else, to remind them that someone still cares, that she hasn't been forgotten.
Haley's emotional coverage of Marcy's murder kept the case in the public eye and on the minds of detectives like Mark Burbridge. Why did you end up choosing Marcy's case to work on?
When I started reviewing that case, I had 2 daughters that are exactly the age she was, and it just touches your heart. You just think of the life she could have had.
As Detective Burbridge studied the evidence and the original reports, he noticed that a DNA sample collected during Marcy's autopsy had never been tested. Was that the key evidence you had to work off of?
Absolutely. That was the key evidence for this case.
Forensic scientist William Colnane was able to recover a full DNA profile from the decades-old biological evidence.
That profile was put into CODIS with our fingers crossed that we would find an individual who matched that profile. And unfortunately, we did not.
The result of the CODIS search was a crushing blow, but investigators went back to work, taking a second look at all of the initial suspects, including the mysterious Bretts and Jamie, who had been accused of sexually assaulting Marcy.
We were able to contact those suspects and get DNA.
Did any of them match the DNA?
No, none of them matched.
After all of the original suspects had been cleared, the investigation once again ground to a halt.
At that point, it was just a waiting game with the hopes that someday an individual would be entered into that database that would match our profile.
Then, more than a decade later, advances in modern DNA science offered another option. A new type of testing called forensic genealogy. The technique focused on tracing a killer's family tree through public DNA databases.
In late 2018, the Spokane Police Department decided they were going to look into that technology, and the case that they chose to look at first was Marcy Velez's homicide.
The complex testing was outsourced to a private lab that provided the cold case team with a confusing new lead.
They told us we found 2 people related to your suspect, and they are not related to each other.
It was a baffling development. DNA linked to Marcy's killer had been found in 2 separate family trees, but the lab technicians believed they had a solution.
We have to build an ancestral tree to figure out where those 2 ancestral lines meet, and then we have to build back down to your suspect.
And the painstaking work paid off. The lab was able to winnow down a massive list of potential suspects to just 4. When the lab came back with 4 names, was that what you expected?
No, but that's the kind of science that they do. They're able to zero right in on things.
It was quite amazing.
After investigators collected DNA from 3 of the potential suspects and eliminated them, there was just 1 person left to investigate. What was his name?
His name was Clayton Giese.
Police immediately began to investigate their new suspect and discovered that at the time of Marcy's murder, 22-year-old Clayton Giese lived just a few miles from her home. Was it shocking to you that his name was nowhere in the case file?
Yeah, it kind of was.
Still, investigators were elated that they finally had physical evidence to connect a prime suspect to the murder of Marcy Velez.
It was a celebration. I knew we were really close to catching that killer.
But that celebration was cut short by a sobering detail.
It turned out he was deceased.
Clayton Giese had been killed during a traffic accident in January 1989, less than 4 years after Marcy's murder.
The car crash that killed Clayton Giese was a high-speed, one-car car wreck with alcohol involved.
The discovery was a huge setback, but a team of investigators that were on the brink of closing the unsolved murder of Marcy Velez weren't going to stop without proving beyond a shadow of doubt that Giese was in fact her killer. They once again turned to DNA technology.
He had some children, so a DNA profile from his daughter was submitted, and using paternity analysis, it was determined that the individual that was her father matched the profile that we were looking for.
But even that paternity test wasn't conclusive enough. Investigators knew there was an even more reliable way to obtain the ultimate proof.
The police agency got an order to exhume his body.
Investigators who had worked so hard on Marcy's case gathered for the exhumation. Describe what it was like to stand at Giese's gravesite, knowing that you had a very good chance of proving that he killed Marcy.
It's almost like being in the courtroom when the jury comes back. I got goosebumps as they were opening his crypt.
But what remains that had been buried for 31 years still have DNA suitable for testing.
The samples were very skeletonized, but I was able to generate a DNA profile from those remains.
And the final DNA test results confirmed what investigators already suspected.
It was a match. So long.
The DNA testing answered the most critical question, but police were also able to fill in more details as they dug into Giese's history. How do you think Giese's path crossed with Marcy?
I believe he is at the party. I think they crossed paths after they left the party.
Investigators theorize Giese lured Marcy into his car by offering her a ride home.
At some point, he pulled over in that empty parking lot for that tow company, and he began to try to get romantic with her. Marcy was a streetwise kid who was tough for a 12-year-old. He raped her. I think Marcy tried to fight, got out of the car. He then cut her throat as a coup de grace.
Marcy's loved ones were incredibly moved by the massive amount of work that had gone into closing the case. How powerful is the message that they just wouldn't give up?
Very powerful. That's actually the reason I participated in this program. It's been 35 years. If they hadn't proceeded with the investigations, we never would have had answers. Ever. For me, it's monumental.
Guilt, remorse, and pain have been replaced by a focus on healing, as loved ones remember a good-natured 12-year-old who touched the lives of so many. What do you remember most about your sister?
She was sweet and very kind-hearted, but somebody took that from her. As a Christian, there's no need for vengeance. There's no need for animosity. Without my faith, I would have been running from the anger all my life.
Hi, I'm Paula Zahn, and tonight we're on the case in Mesa, Arizona, just east of Phoenix. The city, known for its breathtaking desert terrain and sense of community, seemed like the perfect place for Alan and Loretta Lynn to settle down with their infant daughter. But tragedy shattered the couple's lives before they could even finish unpacking. When detectives were called to their home to investigate a terrifying murder, they found a trail of clues they hoped might lead to the killer. But what they actually uncovered was just the beginning of a long, twisted path to justice. Tuesday, June 14th, 1988. It was just before 3 on a warm Arizona morning when a frantic call came in to the Mesa Police Department's 911 center.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Who was the caller, and what did he report?
Alan Lynn, the husband of Loretta Lynn, he had discovered his wife unresponsive on the floor.
He tells them, my wife's here, I just came home, she's cold to the touch.
Alan then made his way through the rest of the house in a state of shock.
They had a 7-month-old child, little girl, and he'd run in to check on her and found her unharmed and asleep.
A backsliding door was ajar.
He ran outside to see if he could see anybody in the area. Not seeing anybody, he then ran back in and called 911.
When the first officers arrived, where was Alan?
Alan was at the front door waiting for officers.
Police noted that Alan was covered in blood. How did he explain that to officers?
He said that he had gotten blood on him when he went to try to perform CPR.
One officer stayed with Alan while the others cautiously searched the home with their guns drawn.
The first responding officers did check the entire house to ensure that nobody was hiding within or laying in wait.
But the only person they discovered was baby Rochelle sleeping in her crib. Once the scene was cleared, police then turned their attention to 26-year-old Loretta Lynn. There was a large amount of blood around her head, on her arms, and under her body. Was the blood still fresh?
It was. The blood on the ground and around her appeared fresh. It didn't appear discolored. It didn't appear clotted or coagulated.
Police concluded that the attack had taken place within hours of their arrival. A closer examination made the cause of the young mother's death clear.
When paramedics rolled Loretta, they noted stab wounds to the back.
Would you describe the attack as having been an ambush?
I would. She was in bed. She obviously had sheets over her, was likely sound asleep when the attack started.
It appeared that someone had a very specific vendetta against Loretta.
Did she have any clothing on?
She did. Her clothing was all intact. It didn't appear like there was any attempt to rip the clothing off of her or pull it down. It did not appear that there was any kind of sexual assault.
And there was no evidence that the attack was a robbery gone wrong.
The rest of the house looked unharmed. It didn't look like anything was gone through. It wasn't ransacked. There was nothing that was found to be missing.
The lack of an obvious motive made other clues harder to understand. How did they believe the killer entered the house?
There was evidence that they had attempted entry at different locations. A pry tool was used at the front door, and that's how entry was made. They found wood chips on the ground from the door frame that had been chipped off. So it appears that they entered the front door, went into the bedroom, and attacked Loretta, and then fled out that back door.
Police found additional evidence as they followed the killer's trail. What did detectives see as they exited the home through the sliding glass door?
They did notice a footprint in the dirt in the backyard, but because of the ground being very hard, it was just a partial print and they weren't able to get a lift from it.
But the killer's footprints had left police a roadmap of his movements.
We believe the suspect exited the backyard of the Lynns using this electrical box to scale the wall and make his escape.
And a forensic examination revealed more critical clues.
Crime scene specialists take photographs. They try to take latent prints from different areas that they believe might have been touched or handled by suspects.
What evidence was discovered inside the bedroom?
Not only did they notice that there was blood on the sheets, but they noticed that there was what appeared to be a fresh grease spot. They believed the assailant had grease on their hands or somehow transferred that to the sheets.
Homicide investigators focused their search on other areas the killer may have touched.
There was a palm print that was located on one of the windows, and they were able to get an impression of that palm print.
Investigators were confident that print would be the key to identifying Loretta's killer. As the Mesa Police Department got to work trying to find Loretta Lynn's killer, news of her murder was slowly making its way from one family member to the next.
I got a call from my sister, and I just remember her telling me Loretta had been killed. And I was just in panic mode, and I think we're just all in shock.
She said Loretta was killed. She was stabbed to death, and it felt like somebody just reached in my chest and pulled my heart out. And when people talk about that gut-wrenching grief, I'd never experienced it, and I just couldn't process.
None of Loretta's loved ones could imagine anyone wanting to hurt a person they treasured so much. What was it about Loretta that made her so special?
She was a really kind person. People pass, everybody says, you know, all these wonderful things about him, but they were said about her when she was alive.
We had a big family. She was such a good example for all of us. We all looked up to her.
She was known as an angel. People just saw her as so giving and loving. She has this glow about her, and she was never one to be in trouble when she was younger. She was very strong in her faith.
How strong was her faith, and how important was it to her?
Oh, she was incredibly devout. She served a mission for the Mormon Church, and it was the center of her life.
Loretta loved to ski and dance. She was also a proud wife and a new mother. How did she adapt to motherhood?
She was a great mom. I remember watching her with Rochelle when Rochelle was, fussing. And she was just so gentle and tender with her.
She loved Rochelle. The last time I saw her, she just said, I quit my job because I don't want somebody else raising my child.
And the couple hoped to have more children. In fact, Loretta and Alan had bought a duplex home in Mesa with a front and back apartment. Their plan was to rent one until their family grew large enough for them to combine both into a single home. What did Loretta tell you about the house she and Alan had bought?
They were really excited about it. They were very smart with their money, so this was an investment in their future.
But now, all those dreams had been shattered. And while Loretta's family tried to absorb the enormity of their loss, investigators were still learning disturbing details about the attack that had ended her life. What did the autopsy reveal about the cause of Loretta's death?
The cause of her death was ruled a homicide due to multiple stab wounds.
Was there one wound in particular that was fatal?
There was. One of the wounds to her back actually struck both her lungs and her heart.
Someone was in a fit of anger and rage and taking it out on Loretta.
How would you describe the last moments of her life?
It had to be absolutely terrifying.
She was in her bed asleep. It's like, that's where you should feel safe. You should be safe in your own home.
The medical examiner found no evidence that Loretta had been sexually assaulted. But as he collected fingernail clippings, he noticed something unusual.
Police found under one fingernail some skin cells. And that would show that Loretta fought back. She had some other marks that likely came during a struggle, a fight. She tried to save herself.
What did the medical examiner discover in Loretta's hand?
In one of her hands, they located what appeared to be a thread-like material.
That fiber was not a match to any of Loretta's clothing or bedding. The discovery led police to conclude the thread had come from something her killer had been wearing. The evidence was stored for testing. The thread and the fingernail scraping were the only physical evidence the killer left behind.
Whoever went in this house and whatever they took in with them, they also left with. There's no murder weapon. There's no crowbar or screwdriver left errantly somewhere.
With few new clues to follow, detectives hit the street hoping to develop additional leads.
They had responding officers start going door to door, speaking with neighbors, seeing if they heard or saw anything.
When investigators canvassed the neighborhood, did they come up with any clues?
Some neighbors heard a dog barking at a strange time of the night. They said that was unusual.
When detectives followed up on the lead with the dog's owner, they learned more troubling information.
The following day, he located his dog locked inside an exterior shed that they had in the backyard. So somebody had put the dog into the shed.
Investigators wondered if Loretta's killer had been responsible. If the killer had done that, would that suggest he was doing that to ensure that he got out of the house without getting attacked?
I don't know. It is very risky handling a dog that you don't know. It's possible that he tried to quiet it by locking it up.
Still, it was a clue that indicated Loretta's murder had been carefully planned. Perhaps by someone hoping to complicate the investigation and point police away from the obvious. And as detectives pieced together that theory, one suspect rose to the top of their list.
Not having a sexual assault, not having things taken from the home. One of the first people we tend to look at is the husband. Was there a domestic violence incident? Was there some other issue? Maybe she was having an affair.
Those questions led police to target Loretta's blood-stained and emotional husband, Alan Lynn. Detectives in Mesa, Arizona had uncovered a series of odd clues that seemed like they may have been intentionally designed to focus attention away from Loretta's inner circle. So investigators moved in the opposite direction.
This did appear to be a personal type of attack.
Walk me through what Alan said happened late that night and then early the next day.
When Alan spoke with detectives, he stated that he had gone to work the previous afternoon. He said that Loretta was home alone with their baby. He had spoken with her on the phone a couple times.
Alan said the couple was expecting painters that day to do work on the front apartment of their duplex home.
Alan had called Loretta late in the afternoon and asked her, had the painter arrived yet? And Loretta told him, no, no one's here. Alan calls the painter. He's told the painter's not coming today. So the last phone conversation Alan had with Loretta, he tells her the painter is not coming today.
He said everything seemed fine and that she said that she was leaving to go pick up some milk.
That call ended around 7:30 p.m. Alan said he finished his swing shift at the factory where he worked around 2:25 a.m. and then drove straight home.
Alan said that when he came home, all the lights inside were off.
As Alan approached the front door of the rear apartment where his family was living, he noticed that it was slightly ajar.
He also noted that the door itself, the handle was locked. So he entered thinking that maybe it was accidental. It had just been left open a slight amount.
Alan told police he assumed that everyone was asleep. So he quietly made his way to the bedroom in darkness.
He walks to the master bedroom, and that's when he sees the bed empty.
It was only when he realized Loretta wasn't in bed that he turned on the lights.
And that's when he saw blood.
He walks to the side of the bed, and that's where he sees his slain wife. And he performed CPR.
Alan's story appeared to line up with the evidence and explained his blood-stained clothing. But detectives still needed to verify every detail. How is his demeanor characterized when he was questioned by police?
Very distraught, very upset. He seemed genuinely just devastated by what had happened.
Officers didn't perceive any of his reaction as being theatrical or someone who was acting?
No.
Still, police interviewed those closest to Loretta to see if there was any hint of trouble in the couple's marriage. How would you describe Loretta's marriage? Was she happy?
She was incredibly happy. Alan was so good to her and treated her like a queen. They just were so in love.
Detectives also went to Alan's office and interviewed coworkers.
There were witnesses at Alan's work who were with him, who said exactly when he left. He had specifically clocked out, so a machine was able to show the time he left work.
It was just 31 minutes from when Alan clocked out until the 911 call was placed. Investigators carefully checked whether that left enough time for Alan to have committed the crime.
Police drove from his place of work to his house, and they determined that it would have taken too long for Alan to have checked out at work, driven home, and committed the murder.
Alan passed a polygraph, and his palm print was not a match to the one discovered on the couple's window. At that point, were detectives comfortable moving on and no longer considering Alan as a suspect?
Yes, they did rule him out.
But Alan's story did add context to the evidence police had discovered. In particular, his mention of men being scheduled to do a renovation in the duplex's front apartment. Loretta's blood-stained bedsheet had a grease stain on it, and the killer had used a pry bar to enter the home. Both clues could be linked to the construction work.
Police had reason to believe that some of these workers who had been around that property could be involved.
How closely did investigators look into the workers who had been involved with the renovation of the front unit?
They followed up with all of the individuals that were reported to have been in the home and working at the home. This included 2 painters, a carpet install man, and they were able to get them to cooperate.
The workers agreed to submit palm prints for comparison to the one found at the crime scene.
They also looked into alibis that these individuals had as far as where they were throughout the night that night.
All 3 men had solid alibis, and none was a match to the palm print discovered on the window.
There was no indication that the painter or any other worker was there at the property that night.
A promising lead had turned into a dead end. But as one door closed, a new one opened. Police discovered a report about suspicious activity in the Linz neighborhood on the night of the murder. It identified a man who appeared to be casing homes near the Linz.
They ran his name, found that he had a warrant for his arrest.
And when police questioned the man, he became the prime suspect in Loretta's murder. Detectives investigating Loretta Lynn's murder had just discovered a promising lead in their own records. A man named Ty had been pulled over for suspicious behavior in the area. What was his story when the officers pulled him over and talked to him?
He claimed that he was just driving through the neighborhood to go to a friend's house. However, he didn't supply a name for this individual, nor would he give an address as to where he was going.
How far was he away from the Lynn home?
It was within a mile or two from the Lynn's residence.
Officers discovered even more red flags when they took a look at Ty's criminal record. What had he been on parole for?
For residential burglary.
So that had to raise suspicions.
Absolutely.
There's reason to believe that whoever went in this house had some experience in burglarizing. Someone who had a plan to get into that specific house and had an escape plan.
Ty's checkered background became even more troubling when investigators glanced at his hands.
He had grease on his hands, which also raised suspicion given that they had located grease on the sheet.
What did he say when he was questioned directly about Loretta's murder?
He claimed to have no knowledge of it and not to have been involved.
Detectives weren't buying his story. They got a warrant to search Ty's car, hoping to find something linked to the attack. Was there anything in his car that tied him to the murder?
No, there was not.
Ty's palm print was also compared with the one found at the crime scene. It was not a match, and he was eliminated as a suspect. But the analyst's report on the palm print did provide detectives with a surprising new clue. What did the lab say about the print found on the exterior window?
The palm print that was located on the exterior window appeared small in size. So our lab experts believed that either the person was young or small in stature.
The report forced investigators to consider the possibility that they were looking for a teenager. And that theory ultimately made information they received from another of the Lynn's neighbors more important.
The neighbor described going out into their backyard and finding pay stubs to a Wendy's restaurant. And he didn't know how they had gotten into his yard.
The man had found the check stubs the morning after the murder, but only realized they could be connected to the crime as news of the investigation spread. Detectives immediately wondered if the evidence had been dropped by their suspect. The man's yard was directly in the path that the killer had likely fled. How did investigators follow up on that lead?
They went to other neighbors. And when they went to a neighbor directly west, the woman there stated that she had actually found the check portion of these stubs in her backyard.
And the woman knew who the checks belonged to.
Her daughter's boyfriend had been working for Wendy's at that time.
Her daughter's boyfriend was named Jesse. And a short time after Loretta's murder, the young man had been arrested for burglary.
This individual had a criminal history. He had burglarized his own workplace and used a crowbar to jimmy open the door. So there were reasons to believe that this guy may be involved.
Did you consider him a viable suspect?
I did, based on the fact that he was a teenager. He had committed a burglary using a pry tool. He had also admitted that he was using drugs. These are different things that could add up.
Police obtained a full set of Jesse's prints and compared them to the crime scene evidence. How surprised were you that his prints didn't match the evidence from the crime scene?
I was disappointed. You know, I was hoping that we were on the right trail, but we were cold again.
And for several years, the case remained stalled. Loretta's family was tormented by the lack of answers. How did your parents cope with their grief?
Well, I can't imagine losing one of my kids. It was super, super hard for them. You take one day at a time and get through that day, and then you work on the next.
But for Loretta's cousin Karen, the wounds only deepened over time. She felt that moving on was the same as forgetting. Finding Loretta's killer became a personal mission.
I have friends that are police officers, and they say, you know, keep on it, Karen. You have to call them, you have to be in their face and always bothering them and letting them know, hey, I'm still here.
And Karen's relentless pursuit of justice captured the attention of members of the media, like Joe Dana.
This is a story about an unbreakable bond between, two childhood cousins and best friends. A woman's determination to bring justice to this case, to bring a sense of peace for herself and her family, and to find the killer.
Karen Dana's crusade to get justice for her cousin Loretta began by requesting the Mesa Police Department's case file on the murder. She put on her detective's hat as she read every page.
Once I got the report, it's like I stepped out of being her cousin. I was looking for facts and anything that made sense. In an unexpected way, it made me feel closer to her.
Karen's hard work also helped her to become closer with the investigators on the case. Over the years, she bounced her theories off them and shared her research about the ways other departments were solving their cold cases.
Karen believes DNA is the last hope, and she's not going to let go of that. She literally goes to conferences to learn more about the technology.
And Karen's efforts raised new questions for detectives. Was there an item in the evidence locker that might reveal the killer's DNA profile? A particular focus was paid to fingernail clippings collected during Loretta's autopsy. What happened in 2004 that reignited the investigation?
The detective that was assigned the case submitted the fingernail clippings to be processed, and that's when we got the original partial DNA profile from those nails.
It was a huge breakthrough, and the profile instantly became the investigation's best clue. The palm print, while useful, could only be compared to a known suspect. The DNA evidence would allow detectives to check massive national databases. Did that profile ultimately get a hit in the CODIS system?
It did not. We never had any type of hit off of it.
It was a disappointing setback, but detectives used the DNA profile to confirm the original investigators' work. What happened when all of the original suspects were tested against that partial profile?
You're thinking, this could be it. But ultimately, they're all ruled out.
Where did that leave your investigation?
Another stumbling block. We just kept going back, trying to see if we had other leads.
The search for a new direction led forensic experts to take a second look at the thread-like fibers discovered in Loretta's hand.
They found it to be just a small string of nylon type of material.
How did detectives think those fibers got on her hand?
They believed that during the struggle, she grabbed at the assailant, wearing some sort of nylon over their face, and got the fibers in her hand while doing that.
Investigators pored over police reports from the time of Loretta's murder, looking for attacks in the area where the perpetrator had worn a nylon stocking. The research uncovered a case that fit everything they were looking for. The suspect was both young and smaller in size, just as the palm print evidence had suggested.
It involved a teenage boy who broke into a woman's home. He had nylon stocking over his head. He had a knife and wanted to sexually assault her. She was actually able to talk him down. He was arrested.
Investigators obtained a warrant to get DNA from the man who was now in his 30s.
The detective did a direct comparison with the DNA. That individual was ruled out. Very frustrating, very disappointing.
By 2020, Detective Teresa Van Golder believed her best shot at advancing the investigation might lie with forensic genealogy. But she only ran into new hurdles.
I was told that the profile that we currently had did not qualify.
And moving forward with a new round of testing to improve that DNA profile came with a huge cost.
If we did, we would be consuming the last of our evidence. Basically, once that's done, we would not be able to go back and redo it.
Detectives went to Loretta's family and explained the risks. It was Loretta's daughter, Rochelle, now a grown woman, who made the decision to approve the gamble.
They were willing to take that chance, just wanting that closure so much.
In May of 2022, the last of Loretta's fingernail clippings were sent to the lab in the hope of obtaining a DNA profile suitable for genealogy testing. What came out of that testing?
Unfortunately, another partial profile.
The news was heartbreaking, but it did come with one small consolation.
They could submit the partial profile for possible surname searches. So we did go ahead and we moved forward with that.
What surnames came out of that process?
We were provided basically two possible surnames. The first was Dooley, spelled with a U and with two O's. And then the second surname was Hayes.
None of those last names appeared anywhere in the case file. Investigators have compiled a massive list of people with those names, but narrowing it down will require more time and perhaps a new witness.
Now it's a matter of, can the right person who perhaps has a relationship with someone with that last name, or they have the last name, are they willing to participate? Are they willing to give permission for testing? That's part of the issue now. Police need willing participants to see if they can find a match with one of these surnames.
Where does the case stand today?
Well, we're hoping for somebody out there to provide us with some information. It's one of those things where you just hope and you pray that you'll one day be able to bring closure to her family.
Until that day comes, Loretta's family focuses on keeping her memory alive. I understand your daughter's name is Loretta. Talk to me about how that came about.
My oldest daughter, we named her Christy Laree. And then I came home with her, and my mom was just so disappointed that I didn't name her Loretta. So I talked to my husband about it, and we decided to change it, and we named her Loretta Marie.
What a beautiful thing to do.
She was my best friend. And we just really miss her.
Will you ever give up searching for Loretta's killer?
No. Never. I can't. She just meant so much to me. I feel like I'm so emotional because I know I'll see her again. And I just